Greetings and salutations, and welcome to the special international symposium. That's one for you out there, Alan. From Outdoors People for Climate Change, we welcome Damon. I'm not going to pronounce his last name, but he will be giving a short presentation for about 20 minutes, and then there will be a follow-up discussion, which I am really looking forward to and should be quite interesting. I'm going to now throw over to Henry Friend to do the welcome for acknowledgement of country. Thanks, Henry.
Thanks, Peter. In the spirit of reconciliation, Inside the Outhouse acknowledges the traditional custodians of country throughout Australia and their connections to land, sea and community. We'd like to pay our respects to their elders past, present and emerging, and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples today.
Thanks very much, Henry. And I'd just like to take this opportunity to thank the Outhaus oligarchs, or the management team, Cherie, David, our newest member, Maddie, and Henry, for all their tireless work in promoting, supporting, and maintaining this essential community project. In this special symposium, the format will be slightly different, as Damon from Outdoor People for Climate Action will present, and following the presentation, there'll be a period of questions. Just a reminder that this session will be recorded so that those people paddling, working, or programming can hear this afterwards. Get your Outhouse fix on our new YouTube channel. Lovely to see you all, and thanks very much for joining us. And thanks again to Damon. Over to you.
Thanks for that, Pete. I'll just bring my screen up here. Well, thank you so much for having Outdoors People for Climate Action and myself inside the Outhouse to have this conversation and to have the discussion that we're going to have today. And thank you, Henry, for the acknowledgement of country. First of all, well done to the Inside the Outhouse management team. You guys have done a fantastic job in terms of giving the outdoor sector a place to come together and have a discussion around these important issues, especially during that time of COVID. So my name's Damon. I've worked in the outdoor industry since 2015, mostly working in outdoor education as an instructor and a program coordinator, with a bit of time spent in the outdoor tourism industry, bushwalk guiding and a few other things. So this talk will be about climate change in Australia, how it's impacting us and how it will impact us in the future, and what those impacts are going to mean for the outdoor sector. We'll also discuss the solutions and what needs to be done, what Outdoors People for Climate Action is all about, and what outdoor businesses and other people in the outdoors can be doing. And yeah, following this, we'll have that discussion about those burning questions. Also, just worth noting, the climate crisis is a really big topic and covers a lot of things, and this talk will just sort of be about it here in Australia and in our industry. And I'm sure a lot of this information will be not new, and you guys will probably have heard a bit of it before, but maybe we'll introduce a few other ways of thinking about it, or prompt some other discussion in this area. So start off by talking a bit about some of the impacts, starting with bushfires. So we're experiencing and will increasingly experience longer and more severe bushfire seasons as a result of climate change. Australia has warmed by about 1 or more than 1.4 degrees Celsius since pre-industrial times, and extreme fire danger days have increased. The fire risk will continue to increase if climate change is not tackled. And as we saw from the 2019-2020 fire season, worsening bushfires are having a profound consequence on the outdoors, including damaging landscapes, closed parks, hazardous air quality, safety concerns, and damage to property, as we saw for a number of centres and schools. Hot days are getting hotter and heat waves are becoming longer and more frequent. Time spent in drought is expected to increase in the future across southern Australia. Increased drought conditions will impact the health of natural environments, and outdoor places will become less attractive. So this will impact waterways, water-based activities as well, and all the programming that we do around waterways. Obviously, we're all well aware that extreme heat is a safety risk for us in the outdoors, and it affects how, when, and where we're running programs. And that extreme heat and increase of extreme heat could be the difference between some companies operating at certain times and not. Globally, sea levels throughout the 21st century are likely to rise between 0.4 and 1 metre, depending on our emissions. Sea level rise affects the coast in two ways. So firstly, by inundation, where the seawater will come up and flood the land. And secondly, by coastal recessions. That's where sandy coasts or otherwise soft shorelines are eroded and recede. And a sea level rise of just 0.5 metre will mean that an extremely rare once in 100-year flooding event could occur a lot more regularly, up to every few months. So this will affect a wide range of coastal recreation activities as well as coastal programming. And these impacts will affect how we access those coastal areas and could result in permanent and severe impacts to the coastal places that we use. Climate change is fueling more intense and damaging storms. Extreme rainfall events are expected to increase in intensity across much of Australia. Tropical cyclones are projected to become less frequent but more intense in terms of winds, rainfall, and storm surges. And severe winds, extreme rainfall, hail, thunderstorm, flooding, erosion, and landslides are all big impacts for the outdoors, and will obviously have a variety of impacts on the way we operate in the outdoors. And yeah, these safety hazards again can reduce the suitability for certain activities more often in certain places. Climate change means that we have less snow in Australia than we did in the past, and that we'll have less snow in the future. Snow cover in Australia has already declined by more than 30% since the 1950s. And this lack of snow impacts snow and alpine programs that a lot of operators provide, as well as for all of us that like to get out there recreationally, either in resorts or in the backcountry. It's also worth noting the Australian ski industry. It's a $2.4 billion industry that employs 23,000 people. Will obviously be massively affected by this. There's about 1 million plant and animal species globally that are threatened with extinction. And it's sort of interesting to consider that we're living in a time when the biomass of the entire world is outweighed by the mass of man-made material. So every tree and every forest and every seaweed and fish in the sea, all of that weight is outmatched by what we've created. So that human impact combined with the impact of climate change is taking a massive toll on biodiversity worldwide. For us here in Australia, we have the highest extinction rate for mammals and one of the highest for animals anywhere worldwide. At 2 degrees Celsius, above pre-industrial times, coral reefs will virtually cease to exist. And so the impacts for biodiversity for us in the outdoors will just mean our experiences will be impacted, and there'll be obvious consequences for nature-based businesses. So what does this all mean for the outdoor sector, and what does this mean for us working in the outdoors? The flow-on effects of this mean that natural values are going to be degraded and natural places becoming less attractive. And that affects the people who love the outdoors as well as businesses who rely on them for work. Increased safety risk, so that's safety risk for us working in the outdoors and the way we operate, and then perceived risk will also affect us, but flow on to other workers, people in the field, participants in the field, clients, parents of students out there in the field. Increased closures and reduced access, that has an impact on how and where we run programs. So businesses being locked out of operational areas and not being able to run programs the way they're intending to, affecting the industry as a whole. Rising insurance costs and other costs and the damages associated with climate change result in reduced viability for programs running. So this will affect the cost of programs and flow on to clients. Also, something else to note, increasing insurance premiums will be particularly relevant to those businesses that are operating in impacted areas. And there'll be a high incidence of postponed, relocated, interrupted, evacuated, and cancelled trips. And that'll be something we will see and have seen already. I remember working the outdoors in 2017 when Cyclone Debbie hit, and the impact that had for participants in southern Queensland, and the programs that were meant to be running over that time. And I think we've all got those stories of how extreme weather has impacted us in the outdoors, impacted our programming, and that extreme weather will obviously have a range of consequences for outdoor education. So all of this ultimately means less quality of the programs that we're delivering, less adventure for us and our students out there, less business for those that operate in nature, and less work for those of us that call the great outdoors our office. These are just a few examples of the many businesses that were impacted by the 2019-2020 fires. So Mount Barney Lodge up in Queensland, they were closed for a month, and the National Park closed for 8 because of the fires. So they hit really hard up there. And they've just had a really proactive stance on climate with their climate emergency declaration, as you can see from the poster on the right there, and just making their clients and guests more informed about this issue. The crossing down in Bermagui, South Coast, New South Wales, you can see on that map on the right there where they are, and that red area is the burn scar from the fire season. So they had a really long time of defending their property and obviously not running programs, so massive interruption to their operations. Those photos are also from their defense during that time. And they've created a community bushfire resilience program off the back of this fire season. So also looking at climate adaptation as well as just focusing on mitigation. Outward Bound Australia, 4 of their 6 operational areas were impacted by the fires. So programs during that time were cancelled, not able to run. And you can see from those photos in New South Wales and Victoria, the ongoing impact to those areas, and obviously being unable to run programs there for quite a long time post-fire. So just another look, there were so many businesses impacted by that, just a small look at some of them. Going to just talk briefly about the solutions and look at the climate crisis more broadly and what action needs to be taken. So the Paris Agreement was adopted in 2015 and signed by 189 countries. It's a legally binding international treaty on climate change with the goal of limiting climate change, limiting climate change and global warming to well below 2 degrees, preferably 1.5 degrees Celsius compared to pre-industrial levels. In order to achieve this, we need to have a carbon neutral world by mid-century. And so carbon neutrality or net zero emissions means that we achieve an overall balance between the amount of greenhouse gases that we're putting into the atmosphere and what we're absorbing. And it's obviously a lot easier to achieve that if there are less greenhouse gases going up in the first place. Currently, the world's grossly off track to meet the Paris Agreement goals, with us currently heading for a temperature rise in excess of 3 degrees this century, with that 1.5 degree target being passed as early as 2026, which is very soon. So I'll just go back to that other one. In terms of what needs to be done, the only thing that's missing in solving the climate crisis is political will. So the United Nations states that readily available technological solutions already exist for more than 70% of today's emissions. And in the meantime, nature-based solutions provide breathing room while we tackle the decarbonisation of our economy. The Climate Change Performance Index reports that of the world's 57 biggest emitting nations, none of them are doing enough to prevent dangerous climate change. And that's the same report that ranked Australia last alongside the US in terms of climate policy. So history has shown us that social movements such as the women's rights movement and anti-apartheid movement are what we need to create political change. In order to drive this political change, we need the climate movement and climate action, and it needs to come from in a variety of different ways, from individuals, businesses, organisations, groups, politically, all sort of working in different ways to achieve this goal of creating the change that needs to happen. This is a graphic that we made that some people have found useful for understanding what climate action encompasses. It's a broad overview of the many, many ways that we can take climate action, and just sort of gives a bit of a look at what this big foggy area of climate action can actually look like. That graphic's available on our website and our social media if you want to have a more in-depth look at it. So who we are, what do we do? Outdoors People for Climate Action. We're a group, a grassroots group made up of members based all over Australia. So we've got members in every state and territory. We're entirely volunteer run with a volunteer team of 10, and we represent a wide variety of professions and outdoor pursuits. So not all outdoor educators, but all have a strong connection and love for the outdoors. We're building our community, and we launched a year ago to the day. So tonight's our first birthday. So we'll be celebrating that, and it's lovely to be on here for that as well. Our mission is to protect the outdoors in the face of the climate and ecological emergency by driving bold action in the outdoor community. Our goals are to sound the alarm, so connecting the dots between the impact of the climate emergency and their consequences for the outdoors. To empower bold action, so enabling individuals and businesses to create change and give them the resources to do so. Build our community, we're stronger together. Stand up for the outdoors, so representing our community's unique concerns and make sure that decision makers are aware of those and taking them into account. These businesses are our current supporters, so they've all signed our business statement of concern on our website. It recognises the impacts that climate change is having and will continue to have on their business, and by becoming a supporter, they're taking a public stance on the issue. They also help us to connect with more people in the industry, their workers and employees and potentially clients, and get them more active within the group. We're hoping to grow our work with businesses and continue to work in different ways with these amazing businesses as well as new businesses into the future. So these are our main campaign areas. So separating it into 3 sections. So most of our work has been up in that first area up there, Adventures for Change. So this is working with outdoor enthusiasts and individuals on that individual level. So working with them to connect the outdoor community with the wider climate movement and enabling them to take climate action. Politics for places. This is something we haven't worked a lot in yet, but we're hoping to work more in this area as we grow and our scope for working in that sphere increases. We've entered a submission into the Climate Change Inquiry Bill, which is a good start, but that's certainly something we will be focusing on in the future. And then our business leaders campaign as well. We've got our supporters there, but we've recently had a new volunteer come on board, really passionate about working with businesses, and that's an area that we're hoping to grow as much as we can. And our goals of working with businesses is to work alongside them and support them in taking climate action themselves, calling for climate action publicly and politically, and getting their staff and clients more engaged with the issue and taking action. I'll just talk briefly about addressing business impact. So these are some points for individuals working within businesses, or if you're a business owner or connected to a business, just some things to consider. It's just some points to consider. So when looking at our impact, one way to look at it is thinking of it as your footprint and your handprint. So footprint is reducing our negative impact, and then a handprint is about seeing what we can do to create positive change and increase our positive impact. So when talking about our footprint, starting with looking at our carbon footprint, can that carbon footprint be measured? And then reducing our carbon footprint. What we can't reduce, we can offset to hopefully become net zero or as close to it as possible. And if we do become net zero as a business, looking for the frameworks for accreditation if businesses do want to go down that line. Caldera Dynamic is an interesting example of this. So they're a ropes course construction and maintenance company, and they do a few other things based up in southeast Queensland. And they've had a really sort of different and interesting approach to it. They've calculated their carbon footprint and then worked out the amount of trees that they'll need to plant to offset it, and the type of trees. And then they've approached their clients, outdoor ed centres and companies, and asked if they can use their clients' properties to plant trees on. So a lot of them had said, yep, great, bring your trees, do the planting, we'll look after them, that's fantastic. And then others have used it as an opportunity to build it into their programming. So have Caldera purchase the trees and then run like facilitate an experience for students planting trees. And that photo that we can see there, that's from the crossing where they do a huge amount of land care down there as well. Just a few other points on your footprint and what we can do to reduce footprint. So transport, if it comes time to upgrading your fleet, looking at electric vehicles, if they are an option for you. Operational and staff travel, how's your staffing looking? Is it correctly managed, or are you regularly flying in staff interstate, and the footprint of that? Being efficient about our energy use, and if possible, purchasing or installing renewable electricity. And that can be as easy for us individually and for businesses as calling up your current energy provider and just asking for 100% renewable electricity. And nowadays, most of them will be able to provide that. Catering, looking at food waste and reducing that, and seeing if plant-based meals are an option to be working into our catering on program. And when it comes time to purchase new product, to upgrade infrastructure, having sustainability at the forefront of that amongst the other considerations that you take into account. Then to look at the handprint, what we can be doing in our industry to increase our impact and be an advocate for the climate. Speaking out, so even something as simple as having a page on a company website can go a long way and have an impact to how that's perceived. Political engagement, so opportunities where a business can influence decision makers, for example, by signing open letters when they come around. Taking leadership on the issue. So if a business or part of a business is doing well in a certain area of climate action, talking about that and talking about your experience in that area. So for example, discussing it at an industry conference. And then incorporating it into programming. So like I mentioned before with the tree planting, and there's many other ways, educating participants about the issue and solutions. And there's a question about that in the burning question. So hopefully we do come around to that one if we get the time for it. Educating and supporting staff. A lot of businesses supported their staff to attend the 2019 climate strike, which was fantastic. And support for climate solutions and actions. So if you're in a position where you can contribute financially or otherwise to support conservation or climate action, it's a fantastic thing to do. I know that Packraft Australia donates to the Bob Brown Foundation, which is a fantastic cause to be putting some money towards. And for businesses taking climate action, it's not all sacrifices that we're making. So there's a lot to gain. For example, by installing renewable electricity, there's financial gains to be made there in the long term. Attracting and retaining staff and volunteers. So there's a lot more people nowadays who are looking to work for an employer that walks the talk and has values that align with their own. And in terms of attracting quality staff, a lot of staff are looking for that nowadays as well. Again, attracting clients being attracted to more sustainable focused providers, and incorporating climate change facilitation into programs can be a big draw card for schools and clients, with climate change being more integrated into the curriculum as well nowadays. And yeah, by becoming an industry leader on this issue, that's always good publicity. And yeah, look, ultimately, if all businesses work together, we can help in protecting the outdoors that we love and our ability to use them for our work, and ensure that this is a really sustainable industry that we're in every sense of the word, and we can operate into it into the future. So if you'd like any references to anything I've mentioned, or for any other resources, please visit our website, outdoorspeople.org. There's a lot on there, and plenty of information out there about this topic and ways to get involved. While you're on there, become a member, click the Join Us tab. We really appreciate it, and it's a good way of staying in contact. If you work for a business, own a business, or know a business that you think would be interested in becoming a supporter, again, on our website, under our supporter category, that's a fantastic thing, and we'd love to be in contact with businesses in the industry. If you're on social media, we're on a variety of different platforms. So if that's your thing, we'd love to connect with you in that space. And yeah, we're about to have a really good discussion about this, which I'm really looking forward to. But yeah, post this discussion, just have a think about how you can engage with climate action and how you can use your own sphere of influence to make change and have a positive impact within the outdoor community or otherwise. So thank you all for having me on here and having Outdoors People for Climate Action connect with Inside the Outhouse. We really do appreciate it, and I personally really appreciate it. And I look forward to this discussion that we're going to have. So I'll hand back over to you, Pete.
Yeah, Damon, thanks very much for that very interesting and informative presentation. I am going to throw it open to the room for initial comments, and I guess we can start to unpack the burning questions of the week. What do people think about what Damon has said? And let's start the chat.
Hi, Damon. It's Robin here. I work at USC. Are you going to go to the National Outdoor Ed Conference and talk this year?
Yeah, we're hoping to. I mean, I'd have to check with some of the other volunteers who have been in touch, I think, with some of them. But yeah, we're definitely hoping to get involved with as many conferences as we can this year, especially moving out of the period of COVID where a lot of our action has been online and sort of a lot of what we have been delivering has either been online presentations or online actions. The ability to go to conferences would be fantastic.
Yeah, I think, you know, it's the whole structure of the conference has changed because it was meant to be last year. So they're sort of looking for, have you seen the new conference outline?
No, I haven't personally.
Yeah, so that it just actually came out today, and they're looking for, you know, they're saying we need to change and what are we going to do and how we're going to do it.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
Because it's quite interesting. I'm actually doing my PhD, and I caught up with Pete the other day, and I said my first introduction was looking at, you know, should we declare a climate emergency in outdoor ed? And then Pete said, oh, we're going to have this talk on Inside the Outhouse. So now I've joined your group, but my focus is sort of looking at outdoor companies, but looking at their policies. You know, do they actually subscribe to more sustainability than climate action? But, you know, do they say they do and do they not? Or do they and what do they do in their program? So to try to map what they actually do in their program. So yeah, we should have a little chat later on.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Thank you so much for that, Robin. And yeah, definitely keen to look into that conference. And yeah, really interesting point raised in terms of what we're saying we're doing and what we're actually doing, and whether those do uphold. But yeah, definitely be in touch. Thank you.
Yeah, Damon, it's Andrew here from Outdoors Victoria. Thanks so much for tonight, and thanks to our house crew too for continuing to do your good work to get us all together. Yeah, Damon, it's wonderful how you've been in existence for a year, and I've heard about you, but lovely to actually learn a whole lot more tonight. And it's definitely the right time before we head to the Outdoor Council of Australia Summit on a whole lot of things. And the two things that we sort of mentioned, didn't mention in the newsletter, that will be mentioned when the OCA official sort of outline of that's going to be about the future of our industry and there was two things. One was consider Indigenous Australian relationships throughout everything that we do in the future and in the working groups that will come out of that summit, but also, which I'll talk about in a minute when we're finished here, but then also around addressing climate change substantially through every single part of everyone's operation into the future. So definitely looking forward to connecting with you and your team after this. So thank you very much for coming on tonight. And you're a fantastic presenter. And that slide pack's just wonderful at giving everyone even a layperson like me, sadly, a really, really good education in such a short amount of time. So well done, and yeah, look forward to working with you substantially over the next number of years.
Oh, thank you so much for that, Andrew. Yeah, no, really appreciate it, and yeah, certainly do look forward to working with you guys. And I guess working with other peak bodies and seeing what we can do within the industry and really move it forward and take some real action and get things happening. But yeah, no, thank you.
Damo, the first question that was posed, the burning question, the generate conversation was, how can the outdoor industry be a leader in climate action? And the part that resonated with me, because I'm still in the field, we'll be in the field this week again on Wednesday. What have you seen and what have you heard about climate action and change happening within program design within outdoor education so far?
I mean, I think in terms of program design, it's a real interesting one. I think I've more seen businesses taking an approach of like a high level approach in terms of addressing their own impact and thinking about how they're running their operations as a term in rather than adapting their programming, if that makes sense. And I think sort of being able to adapt programming and sort of really adapt your operation so it doesn't just affect the way the bigger picture stuff and all of your overheads, but the way you go about your programs. Yeah, it's something would be interested in seeing what other businesses are doing and what other providers are hoping to do in the future as well in terms of addressing that impact.
I think we've also got a tremendous opportunity, Damon and everyone. And my kids have just changed school and they're heading into high school, and the attention to detail towards the end of primary school now with the curriculum in Victoria, and I'm guessing it's pretty similar everywhere else, and then into the high school, there's a huge amount of interest from students, including my kids, around sustainability and sustainable practices. And there's a number of choices around environmental learnings and how to operate a business with a carbon neutral footprint. And as you talk about too, the handprint idea about how you can get on the, pardon the pun, get on the front foot in this area as well. So I think there is, you mentioned in your slides around how do we more sustainably prepare food and the type of food. And there's some huge opportunities with all the outdoor education camps around Australia to be able to work in that area, and you're going to have willing participants to actually assist, just like that particular, I forget the name of the camp that was getting the kids to plant the plants. Well, then they can be involved in sustainable farming on a lot of these properties as well. That then they can harvest, then they can help prepare, and then they can help eat it. So there's again, pardon the pun, but there's a huge appetite from children coming who are students, who are, their parents and them are our future demand and our future clients. And our future in regards to working with us in our industry. So there's a huge amount of enthusiasm coming from the grassroots of those students wanting to do this. So I think there's some really big business opportunities for a lot of the camps, the residential camps.
Oh, absolutely. Like every conversation I've had with teachers or schools recently has been sort of what I've got out of it, or what I've noticed is the shift in curriculum and the shift in focus of the way this is being taught and talked about in schools. And it really is. It's not like when I was at school. It's the literacy around it amongst school age students and participants on programs is so much greater than what we would have had at that age, or what a lot of people even working in the outdoors nowadays do. So yeah, it really is something that the participants really enjoy engaging with and are really sort of a lot more conscious of. And yeah, really something that I think will grow and hopefully sort of we at our level can catch up to where they're at in terms of their understanding of what needs to be done. And we've seen that with the school strike and things like that. But yeah, I think a really good way of adapting programming to suit your client, to suit your participants, and what they're looking for and what they can get out of that.
Can I just jump in there and say, I think if we're going to take action around the climate crisis in outdoor programming, I think we've got to reduce the level of activities that are run in your average outdoor programming, because actually taking real action around climate change, I think, takes time. And a lot of programs I've worked in and for and about have no time to take that action. What do other people think?
I think that's a really good point, Pete. And one thing that I was really curious, because we get a lot of facilitators, hopefully watching our videos or in the group, and this is for the whole group. One of the questions we asked was how can climate information action be incorporated into our outdoor programming? So I'm just curious if anybody here is doing anything to incorporate these types of aspects into their programming at whatever level, or you've heard it done maybe really well. Would anybody care to share any of those ideas?
I don't know if can you hear me now? Technology doesn't work with me today. Cherie, I'm going a couple of notches back because I've been trying to interrupt for some time. Damon, greetings from South Africa. And just to second what Andrew said, it was absolutely brilliant. So thank you. And a lot of what you said, if not more of it, is pertinent all across the world. We've just had a runaway fire that started a week ago or 8 days ago. It didn't affect us directly, but it was in our area. And even as a result of that, we had cancellations and people just concerned that it was too risky to come up here. But just a couple of things that, one, I think COVID is a perfect opportunity for residentials or hard tops or camps, whatever you want to call them, to adapt. So we've been forced to look at alternative business models to how we can bring in income. And one of the things that we're looking at is partnering with a sustainable development organization to use a part of our land here to grow market gardens and organic vegetables, and then to teach children and others how to do it also. So it becomes a symbiotic relationship between us and the organization. We can get people in, they can train people how to do it, and we both have access to the vegetables and the systems that are involved. The second is we didn't do this as a result of climate change. We did it for other reasons. But 12 years ago, we put in at the time was a cutting edge grey water system. So all our sewage used to go into what we call septic tanks and was pumped out and then transported away. And we now have a whole system with UV filters and reed beds, and that water comes out the other side in a clean enough state to be able to irrigate the lawns and the playing fields, which has been a huge cost saver in the long run. It was a massive outlay 12 years ago, but now it just looks after itself, and it's been a huge asset.
Thank you, Alan. That's great to hear what you are doing and what you have done. That's some fantastic initiatives on the go there. And just to add to that idea of using hardtops or centre-based businesses, I think it's such a good opportunity if you do have the space to be doing some sort of conservation or environmental based activity or planning on your property and using the property that you do have for a number of reasons, including getting your staff and clients more aware of it and actually seeing it there. But yeah, really cool to hear about the veggie garden as well. That's fantastic.
Thank you. And just while you're talking, it actually goes further than that. We're where we situated, the farmers all around us have got together to form what's called the Simonsburg Conservancy. And so it's mainly vineyards. And what they've done is, we've got a mountain, you can see it in my backdrop behind me. And that is a wildlife refuge or natural conservation area, whatever you want to call it. But the farmers have created a buffer zone between the mountain itself and then moving in towards the city. And so they've put in all environmentally farming practices. Examples are, they've put up raptor roosts, so poles all across the vineyards to promote the eagles and the owls and the birds of prey to roost and to settle in the vineyards to eat the rats and the mice and the snakes, so that they don't damage the vines or bite the pickers. They've introduced guinea fowl, which is indigenous in the area, but actually actively promoting and protecting them to eat the insects in the vineyards, so that they don't have to spray and put as much poison down any longer. And then everyone benefits as it goes, because they have a lower costing model when it comes to the material that they have to use, their fertilizers, their chemicals and that. And of course, the environment benefits in the long run. And it's used as an educational purpose also. So it's not just the centers, it's the areas around the centers that can start to work with people and grow a community vision for the sustainability or for climate change.
Really great, Alan. I really like that garden initiative. I think that's a really cool idea, and just something maybe a lot of people didn't think about as an opportunity. So that's really cool. I'll definitely put that on our website somewhere, because I definitely think things like that are going to be really useful. I'll bring it back around to my question from earlier, that if there's any initiatives that you guys are doing now, or that you've heard facilitators doing on the ground that are really useful in kind of getting the word out there, or encouraging, especially students, when a lot of times it's a very me time for them, and it's hard sometimes, I think, to get them to understand the gravity of their or the consequences of their actions. And I'll say one of my favorites is like when you have having a list of how long it actually takes for things to decompose, because that's one of my biggest pet peeves, even in my personal life. My friends can all tell you that if we're out somewhere hiking and then like somebody eats an apple or a banana peel or something and they throw it into the woods, it drives me crazy. And usually I go back, I tell them I'll go back and get it, and I'm like, and I've gotten to a point where I'm like, okay, guys, I'll tell you why I do this if you want to hear it. If not, just let me pick this up and take it back. But I think understanding how long it takes for things to decompose, I think makes a big impact. And that's one thing that I always like to use to tell my students about is, you know, it takes actually 6 months for an orange peel to decompose in the wild. And, you know, how long do those types of things stay around? Any other ideas in the group or things that you've heard about?
Hi, everyone.
Hi, Robin.
Oh, sorry, it's Robin again. I work at a uni at USC, and so I'm teaching the outdoor ed teachers. And we, in the subject I teach, we look at a sustainable development goal. So we try to relate them to outdoor ed. So we might have responsible production and consumption. We look at climate change. And what we try to do is then get the students to present a small 20-minute presentation. But this year we're going to change it that they have to integrate a local issue. So here on the Sunshine Coast, they might be looking at, well, why are we building a city centre in a old swamp of a golf course, which, you know, over time is only going to flood, or the housing development crisis, you know, taking over the land where everything's going to run into Pumblestone Passage. So I think giving the students that are going to be teaching in outdoor ed that focus on having that hands-on experience, especially most of them are doing a PE degree at the same time. So if they can see their sports fields are going to be inundated with water or some other consequences, then that really gives them an opportunity to sort of grapple with those concepts.
I've experienced, and Pete has as well, not long ago, a local provider here, again on the Sunshine Coast, called Adventure Alternatives, who do a pretty good go at doing an ecological presentation, including the fact that animals that are farmed on the property become part of the food chain for the campers, including veggie gardens and fish farming. So, and they're currently developing that. So I'll put the link in the chat, but Todd does a pretty good job there and is very passionate about that.
How much, back to Cherie, how much of Leave No Trace do we actually really implement in our own programs and in our own centres? Right across the board, whether it's Leave No Trace in the environment, Leave No Trace in people's lives, Leave No Trace in the community. It's not just about leaving litter around or paper or anything else. It's much broader than that. It's and how much of it do we focus on? Do we really put effort into it?
Alan, there's an article that actually someone's written quite recently, and it says leave more trace. So it's actually trying to espouse what you were saying. As an outdoor company, you have left a trace, but look at the amazing legacy you've left. So the whole article is saying, we have an impact, and we should actually be leaving more trace and putting ourselves out there, and we should be talking about all those issues with the supposed leave no trace. Like, we should be talking about the footprint that we actually leave in terms of lots of plastic clothing coming in the outdoors on trips, and single-use plastics, and et cetera, et cetera. So I can put that up.
Agreed, Robin. I'm not sorry. When I was talking about leave no trace in people's lives, it was leave no harm, or emotional harm, or spiritual harm, more than anything else. Obviously, we want to leave a good impact and give them positive outdoor experiences. We don't want to leave a negative in anything.
I think what Robin said, I really kind of like that, the idea of leaving more of a trace, this idea of teaching people what we want them to do rather than what we don't want them to do. Because I think even like as kids, that's one of the things that I've heard is a really good method, is you don't want to teach kids what not to do, because it makes them think about what not to do, or they only hear, don't slam the door. They hear slam the door. So you just got to think about, I think it's Carl Barron who does a skit on that, talking about how he only selectively hears some things that his parents say. And I feel like maybe that's the same thing with kids in the outdoors, is like when you say don't do something, they just hear do it rather than don't.
Cherie, just having to think about your original question and what's actually being delivered with participants in the field, and just thinking about what experiences I've had or what I've known about businesses or companies that I've worked for. And in general, I think there is definitely that environmental approach, but it's often on that small scale, often on that what we can see here and now, what we're doing in the field. And that is super important and really needs to be done at a high level. And I reckon there's definitely scope to be doing that well, doing that even better, but also focusing on the bigger picture in terms of on the climate and the other impacts that we might not be able to see, but the other impacts that we can discuss and educate about that will have that impact on the climate. And I think there is a lot of room to improve that and to be building upon that for what we're actually delivering. Because I can't think of too many like really strong examples of that I'm aware of sort of facilitated programs or educational sessions that do hit that hard, or that's built into the programming.
Damon, is it a case of the leave no trace principles isn't it's a very American centric I think it comes from America, if I'm not wrong, Cherie. There's an organization that's called Leave No Trace. Yeah, but I don't think it applies. I don't think there's transferable qualifications or courses in Australia, but I might be wrong on that. Do you have any relationship with them yet, or is it still too early?
I've heard about the I can't remember what they're called, but the people that do get trained in it and are at a certain level to deliver the training of Leave No Trace. And I know a few people that have done that. But yeah, I think we, in some ways, we can aim higher, we can go beyond, as well as just ensuring that we are leaving no trace. I think they're really good principles, and it's a really solid structure to be following for working in the field. But yeah, I reckon there is more that can be done on that other scale of looking at the climate and looking at our emissions and looking at everything that we're doing, that has another impact as well as the Leave No Trace.
I think you put a really good question in the chat box, which I want to bring up because I think it really ties into kind of what we're talking about now. Which strengths of the outdoor sector will be most valuable in addressing climate crisis? And what are some of the barriers to us taking action? So maybe if we think about some of the barriers, we can think of ways to go around them.
Well, I'll start because I've just popped something in the chat box that's related to that question and answering that question. Is that I think one of the pieces that Damon was talking about is education, and that's education for all of us who are working in the sector, but it's also about imparting that onto many generations of students and their teachers as well. So we're very proud to be able to host the Nature Stewards program in Victoria, and it's wandering into other states. And it's basically a program that was identified by the Victorian National Parks Association, which supports the growth of national parks, as well as the Field Naturalist Clubs of Victoria, who actually started the Melbourne Museum about 150 years ago, and have a whole lot of naturalist clubs around Victoria, as well as some of the large Friends of groups, and organisations like Landcare. And basically what they did is they came to us and said, look, you were the Victorian Outdoor Education Association in Victoria, and now you're Outdoors Victoria with a little bit more of remit. But it's a really, really magic 10-week course of 3 hours a week, 46 hours contact time to be able to get you across basically Environment 101, flora, fauna, and Indigenous culture and land management. And we've had some, about 30 different professionals actually help write the curriculum. So that's one way that that we can lead the charge in that way, is around actually educating our sector and everything else. So I'd encourage you to have a look at that link and have a bit of a chat to us at any time. Often we actually provide Zoom. So I actually did it with my wife and kids during lockdown in Victoria because of COVID for 111 days. And it was absolutely fantastic to be able to even do it online. Because it's a curriculum that's been built right now in 2019 for the 2020s and beyond. So it's just one little chink towards us understanding the environment better, and then understanding what we can actually do for the environment. So I think that's one small step that we can take towards that answer to your question, Cherie. So I'll pass it back to anyone else.
Thanks, Andrew. Could you throw a link to that course you were talking about in the chat? That would be quite useful, I think, to everyone if you can. Yeah,
I've hidden it in there. It's got https outdoorsvictoria.org.au/nature steward. So it was at 8:03 p.m. if everyone wants to look back. Yeah, sorry.
No worries. Our people will be able to get it later.
Thanks, Pete.
I'd just like to think that and it's maybe a bit of a plug for this type of forum, but I think our ability to communicate as a sector in an open and non-judgmental way is one of our great assets in moving forward on this topic.
Too right, Pete. Too right.
I was going to say, I think it even starts before that, Pete, in that positive outdoor experiences have a tremendous impact on people's perceptions of the environment and even on their future. So, whereas we think they might be going on an excursion, but that person could very well become the next conservationist, the next climate change advocate, the next camp leader. So just by getting people outdoors to start off with, we are making visible what they never saw before, or what they never realized before.
Yeah, I think you're right, Alan. I think one of our big assets is our passion for the outdoors, and so we're passionate about keeping it, safe and secure, and doing our part. So I think making sure that we don't lose hope in what we're doing, and making sure that that passion extends across in our lessons and in our interactions with people. I think that makes a big difference.
I absolutely agree with what all of you have said about this topic, and I think they're all such valid points, and really are strengths of where we stand. And in addition to that, I think another thing is sort of a big part of a lot of outdoor programs and a lot of people work in the outdoors is this leadership, this idea of leadership and leadership development, and bringing that forward in terms of taking leadership on this issue, taking ownership for what we need to do, and being in a position where we can lead and use those skills to affect positive change as well.
Jacob, did you want to share something? I think you said that you had a big message, but now would you like to share it live?
Yeah, I might as well. Oh, hang on, try to leave the other meeting. There we go. I had to join on my phone because I lost my internet connection. But yeah, so at the facility that I work at, we teach 3 respects. And the first respect is always respect the environment. And we can do that by making sure we turn off the lights after we leave for the day to do our programs and stuff. Also considering the water, because we draw all of our water from the local dam, which we do the kayaking and the raft building and all that kind of stuff on. So 2-minute showers, make sure that's stuck to fairly well. And then we also do sticks of paths and make sure that you don't leave litter behind and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I just wanted to share what we do at the facility that I work in.
Thanks, Jacob.
Thanks very much, Jacob. I think people that the things that each and every one of us are doing within our workplaces and across the community, I think also would help out this section. I am just going to say thanks to Damon for coming in and sharing on this topic. I'd like to thank you all for your participation into the complex topic of what outdoor people can do for the climate crisis. And I think it's probably a discussion which needs to continue a little bit. I'm just going to segue to Andrew Knight for the last little bit, as he is going to present in the Outhaus the next time we get together, and he's just going to give us a little bit of a blurb about that. We will then stop the recording, but feel free to hang out and chat for a period of time about this very interesting and lively topic. Thanks again.
Thanks, Pete. And thanks, Damon, for what you've presented on too. It's been fantastic. And in May 2020, our conference, our annual conference that has about 400 to 500 people attend each year, is actually going to be all around climate change. So one blessing is that you weren't formed then, and well, actually you were just formed, but we weren't too knowledgeable about you. Whereas now we know you, you'll be copying an invite for next May 2022. I just want to quickly have a chat to you as a board member of the Outdoor Council of Australia, which is the many peaks, or many of the peaks in our industry, whether it's Outdoors WA, Outdoors SA, Outdoors Vic, Outdoors New South Wales, ACT, Outdoors Queensland, not Corf anymore, as well as Australian Camps Association, Christian Venues Association, and Scouts Australia. And we've obviously been speaking to a number of you and many across the sector for some time, and it was time that we stepped up the plate and So we're going to be organising, and there'll be in more detail very soon, a national summit. And this national summits really are around creating a positive cycle for the outdoors sector. And Damon will be very happy about the fact that the two things that are going to be integrated into every single part of that particular piece, and you'll be getting a copy of this pretty soon. Still got a bit of scribble on at the moment. But that particular positive cycle, we've got to have consideration for the environment and addressing climate change in there, as well as the work that we need to do to develop better relationships and considerations across every part of what we do with the Indigenous Aboriginal Australian community. With that in mind, the main parts of that particular cycle that I just have popped up there is really just creating a positive cycle from the recruitment of students in year 9 to year 12, as well as mature age students, and also other parts of the community that are jumping across from emergency services and things like that, and coming to work for us, which is a growing trend, which is fantastic. Really communicating that to a whole lot more people in the community, including every single student in Australia between the ages of 14 and 18. The next thing that we need to address is the clarity of the various training pathways. There's Pedal Australia, there's Climbing Instructors Association, there's the Ski Instructors Association, there's the private registered training organisations, there's the TAFEs, there's the universities. And sorry, Alan, if this is not making as much sense as it should to you, but I think there's some similarities across. And making that a whole lot clearer to anyone who wants to join us, and what kind of training they need to do, where they need to do it, how they need to do it, what's the consistency of training. The amount of times that I hear different employers having to ring up different other businesses or a particular university lecturer or TAFE teacher and say, hey, you had Josephine in there, last year, what really was she like? Because I can't really tell from the results that have been provided to me. We need to get away from that. Our industry's way too diverse, way too time poor, and it's so inefficient to be doing that type of thing. And it's actually not the best way of doing things if you speak to the medical industry or other industries that are well organised like this. And it's not all our fault, because our particular industry or sector, group of sectors hasn't been around forever. So it's time that we matured in this particular way, and let's have a go at doing it together. Another piece of that particular cycle is around accreditation, whether we do go hard on an individual accreditation as well as improve business accreditation. Desktop audits, you speak to an insurance company, they're not too convinced about those anymore around our accreditation systems. And then it's all about talking and discussing and working out the most superior products and services that we can provide. And we've heard some of these tonight. There's some really innovative ways that we can offer a superior service and a better product to our clients from some of the things that Damon's talked to us about tonight. And then it's about, boosting client numbers, boosting profitability of the firms and institutions that are involved in our particular industry. And it's about galvanising our marketing efforts around communicating to international tourists, domestic tourists, school groups, community groups, as well as therapists and others in the allied health community that are looking to us for solutions to help out with their troubled youth, disadvantaged youth, underrepresented groups like families that have someone living with a disability that want our help to get them into the outdoors, have fantastic experiences. So it's about how do we galvanise our marketing efforts around that. And then the final piece of the puzzle, from a positive cycle perspective to keep this thing kicking on, is better pay conditions and higher retention levels of our professionals in our sectors. And all that leads then into the positive story back around to those students at 14 years of age wondering what kind of career they want. And when we come knocking, they've already heard of our great reputation and are dying to join us and have a long career with us. So it's really about having a really sincere look at that. And that's a summit of we're going to be inviting 100 people. Those 8 different peaks will be inviting approximately 13 each. And then there'll be chairs from that particular board that will chair those particular circles. And then we'll also have a very democratic way of everyone being able to connect with that particular chair from across our sector to be able to share good ideas, concerns, issues, solutions to some of the questions that are going to come up, because definitely it's a gathering of the minds. It's going to be very exciting. And I think a number of the people on the call tonight will be invited. So wanted to let you know in advance. But I think it's something that it's not going to take weeks. It's not going to take months. It's going to take years. And it's probably going to take some funding from some of the governments. And that's why having the peaks involves handy. But we need to have a whole bunch of wonderful people to get together to start working on those things quite sincerely over the next number of months and years. So I just wanted to just mention that today and give you a little bit of context behind what the Outdoor Council of Australia are thinking around that. So definitely invite any particular chat afterwards. I know the recording's got to stop, but thanks very much for letting us showcase what we're going to chat about in 2 weeks' time at the Outhaus. That's right. We'll be back to have a chat about this in a little bit more detail again. And then the summit's going to be most likely the 27th and the 28th of May this year.
Thanks very much, Andrew. We'll definitely promote that hugely in the next Outhouse in 2 weeks' time. Thanks everyone for attending today. I'm going to stop the recording.